friends, it's Kayla. Today I thought we would do a silly experiment video where we establish how fast I read and then implement some tools and tips and see if I can learn how to read faster. I feel like one of the top questions I get on my videos is how I read so many books, or how I read so many pages, or how I read so fast. And I've never considered myself a fast reader, but like I timed my reading just for curiosity's sake like a year ago, and it was like 100 pages an hour, but that was in such a specific context. So I always use like the number between 60 and 120 pages an hour is what I think I read, but I don't actually know, and I don't actually care. But since it gets brought up so much, I just want to know, like, what kind of a reader am I? My mom's always been a pretty quick reader, so I guess I am a quick reader. I type fast, I talk fast, I read fast. And back in November when I was at Indigo buying Christmas presents, I saw this in the stocking stuffer section, and it's a reading timer. And I've been holding on to this for so long because, like, yeah, I have a timer on my phone, but this is more fun. So we're just gonna see how fast I read, and by quantifying this, I know it's gonna come across like I am trying to read fast in my general life, or I skim read, or I speed read. I don't even know what that really means. Or I care about how many books or pages I read, which I don't. I'm not in a competition with anybody, not in a competition with myself. I'm never trying to read a certain amount of books, a certain amount of pages, or at a certain speed. I just think it'll be fun to know. And since I don't have any tips on how to read faster, I'm gonna watch other people so they can discuss it. I can learn from them what people would even say when asked that question, because I don't know how to answer that question. I read every word on a page. I feel like this is also gonna come across a little defensive, because people sometimes will challenge my reading and say that, like, there's no way that I could understand things at the speed that I read, or that I'm skim reading or speed reading. But I'm just like, I'm reading the story at the pace that makes sense in my brain. And listen, English class is the only class that I consistently got straight A's, so I take pride in my reading comprehension. I think the other class that I got high marks, the highest marks, is like career and personal planning, in which we did a lot of typing tests, and I was the #1 fast typer, speed. I had the top speed at typing in my typing class, every typing class I've ever taken. I was obnoxious about it. Like, it was the one thing that I had. And all the boys in class would constantly challenge me and say that I was cheating in some way, which, like, what isn't even possible. So it's been over 10 years since I've written an essay or typed a lot at a time. I mean, besides like my coding classes in art school, like the last time I sat down and typed and tried to type quickly was a really long time ago. So we're doing a couple things today. I'm gonna take a typing test just for fun. I'm gonna test how fast I read as a baseline. I've chosen to reread The Raven Cycle over this long weekend, so I thought this would be a good thing to read for this, because it's a really average experience, not the reading experience itself. This is one of my favorite series, but I've already read it, so I'm familiar enough with it that I won't be pausing to like look up words or trying to understand something. So I think this will be the top end of how quickly I read, based on the size of the book and the size of the pages and the type of language. If I were to read, I don't know, my husband's electrical code book, it would be a lot slower. And I wonder if one of the tips is to drink a lot of coffee before you read, because I'm already there. Let's begin. Okay, I feel like I'm gonna have to try a couple different websites before I know which one I even like. My face is very red now, but my average was like 98. I swear I used to get over 100. Anyway, we know I at least can read 100 words a minute. I don't even know. But I'm guessing I can read faster than I was reading on there and typing. Liam wants to take a typing test too. Let's let him. Oh, hell yeah. Oh, he's still going. promise. Go, Rob, go. We're gonna stress him out. Redemption?
Yeah.
Rob got 41.
Oh, I'm sure.
Let's give Liam one more turn.
But you got 99% accuracy.
Good job, babe. 41.
Oh.
52!
He's good.
My turn, my turn, my turn, my turn, my turn, my turn. Oh. Oh, I thought it would just keep giving me things.
Oh.
120 words a minute. Okay, great. Now that we've established that for no reason, and we know that Liam is officially the fastest typer in his class, we'll get on to reading. So I'm actually going to read my paperback edition of The Raven Boys because I don't want the tabs to distract me. I'm reading at the speed I would normally read in order to enjoy the story and, I don't know, just read. My normal reading environment in my bed. It's usually not the middle of the day, it's usually in the evening. And here's my little book timer. I guess you can clip it to your book or anything around you. I also sometimes have like an instrumental playlist going, but that's usually just to like drown out all the other noises going on in the house. I don't prefer to listen to anything while I'm reading. And I think that I can do this in two different ways. Either the time goes up or the time counts down. So I think I'll set it to 30 minutes and see how many pages I read in 30 minutes. I normally don't get more than 30 minutes of uninterrupted time to like figure this out. So let's begin. Okay, it took me 32.5 minutes to read 100 pages. I am now listening to my instrumental because Liam has started playing video games and Rob has started taking a nap in the other room. So lots of noises. It's funny because originally I was going to see how many pages I read in an hour. So I was going to time half an hour and see how many pages I got through. But I didn't know what that number was going to be. So I decided to flip it instead and divide the book into 4 chunks. And then I could see how long it took me to read 100 pages. But it ended up matching anyway. I'm telling you. A lot of noises. Anyway, I know this isn't supposed to be a review for the Raven Cycle, but I really did forget. I've read this like 6 times, but how many of my favorite scenes happen all in the first 100 pages? And I just really want to continue reading today because I love it. I love it so much. I love Maggie Stiefvater's writing. I was like dog-earing my favorite parts, even though I have my entire other edition with all of the post-its. Just Blue and Gansey's first interaction where he offers to pay her to talk to them and like doesn't realize what he's saying, and then she calls him out and then he goes, "Dear God." And then the moment that Adam and Blue first talk and he talks about how Gansey's like stupid with money and doesn't understand what he's saying, and she's like, "And you're not like that." And then he doesn't answer her, but he just leveled her with a very steady look. Like that was just a great moment. And then Ronan goes missing and they find him, and like all the scenes that set up future things, they all happen so fast in the book and I love it. I love it a lot. Anyway, I'm gonna finish this today and I will give you an average at the end of the day of how long it took me to read each 100 pages. So then we have like a full 4-part example. Okay. So my time ended up being consistent throughout the rest of this. Like there was one that was like 29 minutes. There was one chunk that was 35 minutes. And then there was one more that was 32 again. So the average of all of that is 32. So for a book that I've already read, a book that's easy to read, a book that's consistent with like the number of paragraphs on a page, the number of words in a paragraph, etc., I read 100 pages in 32 minutes. But before I move on to the next book in the series and I implement some tips and tricks for reading faster, I obviously want to test my reading speed in a book that is not familiar. And I'm trying to decide which one, because my first pick, this is going to give a little sneak peek, spoiler, into a future vlog. but I am reading Mrs. Death soon, and I was gonna pick this, but skimming through it, there's a ton of dialogue and different styles of prose and whatnot, so that's not gonna be the best for that test. And then I was gonna pick The Echo Wife, but this only has 200 and something pages, so I would only get to test it twice. I'm trying to pick something that I'm already planning on reading this month because I can't throw off my entire TBR right now. So I think I'm gonna go with The Mirror Season, which I know if anyone is at this point in the video still like misunderstanding the purpose of the video, because maybe I haven't explained myself well, but like the point of the video is not to come out with an answer that's like, I read this many pages an hour, I read 100 pages in this amount of time. Like, that's not the point. The point is if I can increase my reading speed, not permanently, but just like at all. I love the way that I currently read. I have no plans to ever change the way that I read, but some things that I've seen is like drawing little lines on the page and listening to a certain type of music and like sucking on a lozenge. So we're just gonna see if those things work at all. It's not about me trying to flex by like reading YA books that are easier to read naturally, because like they have easier language typically and they have a less amount of words on a page, etc. I think this will be a good baseline because these are similar in like size and type of language, but it's like, I've read this one before, I haven't read this one. How will they differ as far as my reading speed? I'm assuming I'm gonna be much slower at this, so I'm just gonna shut up and set my timer and we'll see what happens. Hello, it's another day. I just realized my book matches my dress. Okay, I read 100 pages of this and it took me 47 minutes. And I'm quite liking it, so I think, oh shoot, I was gonna say like I'm gonna finish it so I can test to make sure that's an accurate number, but it's exactly 300 pages. Here's what I'll do. I'll read another 50 because then I can just multiply it, make sure that my time is accurate, and then I have 150 pages left, and that's when I can do the test read with this and with the Dream Thieves. I did the math and I counted the number of words on the page because I guess people care more about words read per minute. So we're gonna compare a book that I've read before and a brand new book, keeping in mind they're both all the things that I explained before. So for the Raven Cycle, I read 100 pages in 32 minutes, which is 3.1 pages per minute, which is 187 pages per hour. If there are 270 words per page, I read an average of 810 words per minute. For the Mirror Season, something new to me, I read 100 pages in 47 minutes. That's 2.1 pages per minute, 127 pages per hour. There are 270 words per page again, so I was reading at a rate of 570 words per minute. And I think like you'll just have to trust me on like reading comprehension. I never read faster than I can understand what's going on because then I wouldn't be enjoying the book. So I've been watching videos, I've been getting ideas on how to read faster, although most videos seem to be about how to read more, but I have slowly been finding what I'm looking for. So I'm gonna read my last bit of this and then I'll implement all of those reading things later. Like, should I do them all at once? Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. Okay, I look like this now. This is the only time I have to read today. It's very late. I don't know how much, well, I'm gonna get at least 100 pages into the Dream Thieves, so we can time it. Two kind of basic things I can try right off the bat. Well, one of them is opening spearmint gum. I haven't chewed gum in so long, but apparently sucking on something or chewing on something makes you read faster, which like makes sense in my brain. I don't need it explained to me, like it makes sense. One piece? Does it matter? Why can't I just have a snack instead? Like if I was sitting here eating popcorn, I'd probably be chewing just as fast. I also don't have my contacts in, which doesn't affect my reading, but it affects my ability to see myself. The other thing is listening to music. I already listen, I think I told you already, like occasionally I'm listening to really slow instrumental music just to like drown out the rest of the house. But it's quiet now, so I normally like wouldn't be listening to music. But you can read faster if you listen to music, and especially if it has a high like BPM, which with the chewing and like, you know, it's like this, like you're just pumped up and ready to go. So those are the two things I'm going to try right now. There are other things that involve like, oh, drawing in the book. I also bought something, but I can't see it. Okay, I also felt ridiculous, but I bought these because, well, I think these ones in particular are for like tabbing your book. But what people say is that you're supposed to hook this onto your page, kind of just like your finger. Just having something that's tracking the words can help you read faster. I just don't think this makes sense for me because I read too fast. Like if this was a giant textbook or like I was reading House of Leaves, maybe this would help. But like the time it takes for me to hook it on and then like, oh my God, the time that it's gonna take to pull it off and then flip the page and then hook it on the opposite side. I guess I could queue up like 10 pages at a time. I just don't think this is it. Also, it covers some of the words. No, that's not gonna help. Anyway, one other tip was to mark the stopping point that you want to stop at, and it helps you get to it faster when you know like where it is and it's not just some ambiguous point. So it's in the middle of a chapter, but now we have a use for that little arrow because it's going to encourage me. I'm very tired, but I've also had a lot of caffeine, so like I still definitely need to listen to an instrumental because lyrics are going to be distracting. But let me find a fast song, a fast playlist. Oh, I have Def Leppard open. That is not gonna work. That's the last thing I listened to. Actually, you know, that could pour some. Don't put that clip in, Kayla. Ooh, Def Leppard instrumental. Do you think that's a thing? It is. Let's put on my favorite song. Okay, 100 pages down. Here's what I learned. Starbucks gum, not good for 100 pages of reading. That started tasting gross after like 5 minutes. Or what I think was 5 minutes. I have not looked at the timer. I have no idea how long that was, but it felt like a long time. I definitely didn't enjoy the first 100 pages of this the way that I enjoyed, I guess, the entirety of the Raven Boys, which is so weird because I consider this my favorite book in the series. But we were getting to some scenes that I enjoy more, like throwing Noah out the window. That happened. Noah in the store with the glitter everywhere. Basically every scene with Noah. Oh, also I got distracted because I kept trying to blow bubbles. So if there's gum on my lip, you know what happened. There's a lot of tension in the first 100 pages. Like Adam just did something at the end of the Raven Boys, and now we're dealing with the repercussions of that and like his relationship with Gansey and his relationship with Blue, and everything is tense. And then there's all this setup with the gray man, and there's scenes with Declan, and there's scenes with Orla, and like it's not the core group. And I think it gets a lot more fun as we go on. The scenes with Kavinsky were good, but I think like having read the first book in the Dreamer trilogy and knowing that there's a whole series about Ronan, I almost don't want as much Ronan, and I was like itching to get back to the scenes with Gansey and Blue and Noah and Adam. So I don't know what that's about because Ronan is my favorite character. Very strange. Let's see how long that took. 29 minutes and 54 seconds. Wow. Okay, I definitely, if I had to guess, I would have said that was like 40 minutes. So can we conclusively say that the 2-minute difference was due to the music and the gum chewing? I'm gonna say no, because it was actually like distracting, because the speed at which I read isn't, how do I explain it? I was just very aware of my reading speed while I was doing it, because at some points I was reading like word, 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 and then some paragraphs it was like in a straight line. You know how like if you try to look around your room, your eyes are like bump, 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 even if it's trying to be smooth. But if you have something to track, like your finger, I wasn't even looking at it, then your eyes can move smoothly. But if I just try to look around, it like grabs key spots. So there were some points that I was like, blah, blah, blah. And there were some points where I was like actively like, okay, stream it, stream the lines, stream the line. I think I'm actually gonna have to hold off until tomorrow to continue this because I'm realizing I don't really have a control here besides like the type of book, because it's not light out and I don't have my contacts in, and that could be swaying things. And then tomorrow I'm going to read with lines drawn down each page, which I don't really understand. I understand the concept that it's supposed to, you're at that point not reading every single word, it's more like speed reading, but by drawing 2 to 3 lines it's supposed to help like make your eyes bump, 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 bump around the page. But I feel like the time it would take to draw those lines, I could have been reading. Today I'm excited to put all of my tips together. So I drew lines on 100 pages. I realized afterwards that I got it a little bit wrong and I'm supposed to put them a little closer to the end. So as you go through the pages, you'll see ones that are nearer to the edge of the page.
Basically, the idea is that because when we look at a word, our peripheral vision can like see the words around the word. And so really like normally we look at the very first word of a line, but then we're wasting peripheral vision because there's like empty space to the side. Whereas if we start like a little bit in and we kind of track our eyes, not from the start of the text to the end of the text, but like a little bit in, we can actually still see all the words and visually read without wasting that space.
The other big tip is stopping
Subvocalization, meaning that if you have to say, you ever notice when you're reading something, you hear that inner voice inside your head reading along with you? The reason why it's an obstacle to your reading is because if you have to say the words inside your mind in order to understand them, then you can only read as fast as you could speak.
So I'm not supposed to read the words in my head, which I was practicing a little bit last night. I think tons of people already inherently read that way, but for me, it's gonna be a bit of a challenge. So chewing gum, listening to music, I have the lines drawn, I'm not gonna say the words in my voice in my head, and all of it combined should lead to just the fastest reading ever. This is also probably my favorite part of the book if I'm like remembering it well, so I think it's gonna be a good time. Let's begin. Just kidding, I accidentally grabbed mints, which is actually I think gonna be a good thing. Whoa. Okay, that was super weird. I've never read like that before. I feel like I was definitely missing like some things, but I just want you to pay attention to what my eyes were doing, and I'm gonna read an entire page normally just to compare. It's like I was reading with my peripherals. I guess that's what it's encouraging you to do, because I didn't start every line at the beginning. I started every line like 3 words in, and then I kind of read, but my eyes were like gravitating towards the next line, and then I didn't even read the last 3 words of each line, but I did in my peripherals, like I saw them. That was so weird. I'm gonna play a clip of that in real time so you can see, and see if we can watch if there's a comparison. And this is what it looks like when I read my traditional way. Does it look different? I'm really excited to edit this and see what it looks like. Okay, that was nuts. 23 minutes. As expected, I see the appeal when it comes to nonfiction and stuff that you're trying to like get through and learn. But if you're really trying to enjoy a story, like speed reading isn't the answer anyway. Like obviously, because I was right, a lot of my favorite scenes were in those 100 pages. Well, I still feel like I got the story and I didn't feel like I was skipping stuff. Self-vocalizing and like reading the same line a couple times and like going back and really like just being immersed in the story like I normally do, like that's how I enjoy reading these books. So like we had the substance party in those 100 pages and it didn't have like the same impact, and then we had that scene, if you know it, you know it, between Blue and Noah. And I'm pretty sure I cried the last time I read that scene, the first time I read that scene, maybe every time I read that scene. I got all the details, like there was something about a mint leaf, there was something about prison, there was something about a brother, but there were definitely no like direct quotes that I could pull out of there that stuck in my head. Obviously I've read this before, so the next test is to read another 100 pages of the Mirror season, taking these same tactics with me and seeing how my understanding is of a new story. That was wild. Can't deny that it didn't work, but it's not, that was not enjoyable. I don't know where we're at. I'm taking a lot longer to film this video than I wanted to. I think it's also because I'm like questioning what on earth I'm doing. Like, I don't know what this video is, and I probably shouldn't even post it, and I'm starting to feel like this is just so ridiculous. I finished The Dream Thieves. I implemented in the last 100 pages all of the tips and tricks that we've talked about so far, except for I didn't draw any lines because it is not the way I like to read, but I can't deny it makes you read faster. But I saw a couple different articles and videos that were talking about subvocalization, and a couple tips were 1, to listen to music, and 2, to put your tongue to the roof of your mouth, which helps you stop like mouthing the words. And then I saw this other guy talking about word grouping.
You don't really have to say the words, you can just look at them. When I show you the cover of this book, you don't look here, then look here, then look here, then look here. You just look at the cover and you see this, all of it. Grouping, just take 2 words at the same time.
Which is what the lines were doing. But so I tried to do that without having the lines, kind of like pretending that the lines were there.
I personally like using a pencil because I annotate my books anyway. So if I'm bouncing along the page and I'm just hitting my focus points on the page with my pencil as I'm going, that helps me to see my focus points, focus on those and only those, and it helps me to get through it faster.
And I read just as fast those 100 pages. And I feel like I comprehended more because I wasn't getting distracted by the lines. But I would still really like to try this with nonfiction. I just don't have plans to read nonfiction before this video goes out. So this is not my best. If you want an update on the book itself, 5 stars. I love this book. It still might be my favorite, but I'm also now halfway through Blue Lily Lily Blue, and I feel like this might be my favorite of the series. So I know you all just really needed an update on my love of my favorite series that I have talked about nonstop for 4 years. And I actually didn't use any of those fast reading tips for any of this because I'm just reading the way that I like to read. For me, I enjoy like reading the same phrase over and over again, or like I'll read halfway down a page and I'll find myself starting over again if it's like one of my favorite scenes. I also love was it self-vocalization or sub-vocalization? Oh no. I like reading it out loud to myself. I even find myself not like acting out scenes, but like kind of acting out scenes in my head. Oh my. Anyway, back to the Mirror season. The second half of this is going to be the finale of this entire experiment. I am really enjoying this book. I figured talking about the books maybe we'll add some substance to this. It's more rooted in reality than quite a few other books from this author, and I like that. Like, we're just in high school hanging out in the hallways, and then we do have that magical element. Our main character has, I think I talked about, the ability, is going back and forth with this magical ability to like predict the baked good that a customer is going to love before they, like, she just knows what they need. And it's kind of like this idea of recovery, and that it's not always linear. So something can remind you of a traumatic memory and you regress a little bit with your journey to recovery. I know that's not even the proper like terminology, but I think it's really good that we're not just seeing like a straight path to getting over an experience. Most traumatic experiences in life, you don't like get over. It's that you find things to focus on. You're going through different experiences in life, and there are certain times when things are more difficult than others. But anyway, as far as the experiment here, I read the next 50 pages at the same speed as the first 100 pages, just by reading it without trying to do anything, just reading it the way I would normally read it. And now for the second half, I'm excited to see where the story goes, and I want to make sure my comprehension is very high. So I don't intend to attempt speed reading, but I am going to see how quickly I can read. So we're gonna try the tips of like reading out loud inside your own head, the music, the sucking on a lozenge, and then 2 new things I'm gonna try. One of the tips was to skim the entirety of what you're about to read before you read it.
You also need to skim a text before you actually start speed reading. So just flip the pages and see what are the headlines, what are the words in bold, are there any charts inside the book. Now, why this is important, a lot of times we read a lot of things in books and we don't understand what's happening.
Again, I feel like this applies probably better to nonfiction, but picking out like key phrases and key themes and then going back and reading. I found this advice in quite a few articles. And then the other one that is interesting is like covering up the words as you go.
You may think that you continue on this way in a straightforward fashion, marching down the page, but readers also jump back from time to time. These are little episodes of review. These regressions help you connect what you just read with something you read earlier. Maybe you don't quite remember, you need to check. All right, so now you can move on.
And what I always thought when people said that they were like reading like this, I figured they meant so they're reading and then this keeps moving down, and so they can only focus on one line at a time so they don't jump ahead. And I do think that that's what people do, but a lot of tips with this idea of speed reading was the other way around. So you're blocking out what came before. So maybe I need a bigger piece of paper, but what it does is it helps you not go back and read the same thing multiple times, which is something that I do. And the people talking about it were saying that they often find that they feel like maybe they didn't fully understand what they just read, or they're getting distracted, and so then their eye travels back up the page, but they're not realizing that they are actually retaining a good amount of information. They're just not realizing it in the moment until like they're a couple pages deep, and then if you reflect back, like you did retain more than you thought. So that's what I want to try here, is I want to read under the bookmark as I drag it down the page, so nothing above it can make me like go back and think, did I really understand what I just read? Like, let me try again. So I'm gonna have to perfect that motion as I read, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, final thoughts are here. We're going to talk about my final stats for the Mirror season, what I thought of it, and general things. So one thing I really want to say is that I didn't take like a speed reading course, obviously. So all the little things that I mentioned are just general advice out there on the internet, and not necessarily advice that I'm trying to give to anybody. Like, this is not a teaching lesson, but I wanted to highlight the people that I did learn these things from. But a lot of videos out there were about them taking speed reading courses and things they learned from that. So if you're interested in learning to read fast, maybe a paid like service is the answer for you. Some other things that I learned along the way, little tips, were like your posture while reading, sitting up and getting as much oxygen as possible, which I think you'll see in some clips where I'm like sitting up a little more in bed than normal. That's definitely a thing. Just being more awake in general, and that's what I thought was the purpose of the music and the chewing or sucking on something, was that it kept you like alert, and it kept your brain like maybe reading to like a beat. And I actually found that chewing while reading is like the one piece of advice that did not work at all for me, because I was reading faster, like I was hitting words faster than I was chewing, and I found it actually really distracting, because it was like I was almost trying to read on beat. But what I realized is those tips are specifically for making your mind distracted by other things, so you stop narrating in your head and subvocalizing. Another tip kind of related was to make a specific playlist that you only listen to while reading. So it's all about putting yourself in the right mindset to read. So maybe it's not really necessarily a tip about reading faster, but maybe it's like making the quality of your reading better. It's like how if you take a sleep training seminar, it talks about how you shouldn't ever spend time in your bed unless you're sleeping, because in your training your brain to associate your bed with sleep. So if you try to do anything else in your bed, like, you're gonna get tired. That's why you're not supposed to read in your bed. If you're not like an avid reader who's just trying to get into reading, you shouldn't be reading in your bed. Another tip had to do with like eye muscles and like doing these different eye exercises to get used to moving your eyes quicker or making you more able to use your peripherals. So those are just a couple things that got talked about. I feel like what really worked for me reading faster was having music. Music will always make me read faster. As far as skimming first, obviously you have to not care about spoilers if you're gonna do that. So skimming first in like a textbook kind of situation would make sense, but I was not a fan for this book. And then what I realized is a lot of the tips actually were the same tip, and it was all about regression and like how to stay on task and stay on the line that you're reading. So like using the pencil trick or grouping words or blocking out words, that all had to do with regression. Don't mind me making 9 p.m. nachos. But my final results for using all of the tips in the last 100 pages of the Mirror season, I actually tested 50 pages at one time because I didn't have that much time to read, and then I tested again with 100 pages and they were almost identical. So I read the last 100 pages of this in 39 minutes, which if you put the two numbers up here, the way that I normally read, I read 100 pages in 47 minutes, and this one I read in 39 minutes, which equaled 2.1 pages the first time, and now I was reading 2.5 pages a minute. That equals 127 pages an hour versus 150 pages an hour, and 570 words per minute versus 675 words per minute. This obviously is still at the top end of how fast I read. I don't have any reference to like the slowest that I would read in an hour, but my fastest potential to read like a brand new book would be 150 pages an hour, which sounds wild. As far as this book goes, the reason you haven't heard me talk about it very much is because I don't know how to talk about it. It was a really difficult read for me. I feel very uncomfortable with this book in a lot of ways and recommending it, even though of course this is one of my favorite authors and they often deal with like really intense topics. I still don't know how I feel about everything that went down in here, so I am not giving a good review. I don't even think I'm going to end up rating this book, so my apologies if you were looking for that. As far as what I'm taking forward, I don't think any of these tips I'm ever going to use, except for like the listening to music, because I already kind of do that. I will say I did try the pen bopping method, I don't know what to call it, and I didn't hate it, and it did keep me on task. So I'm far more likely to go forward with that as opposed to the bookmark. Of course, you can also use your finger. That's like the #1 tip for speed reading that I didn't even touch on. Is just using your finger to like track the page. But the fact is, these tips work. Since I combined so many of them at a time, I know that like scientifically, we don't really have a result here, which makes this video pointless, but that's kind of, you know, par for the course with my videos. Did we learn anything? Not really sure. Did we have a good time? Yeah. And I would love to hear any of your tips down below. If you have improved your reading speed, how did you do it? Do you feel like you read slow or fast, and are you happy with how you currently read? Have you ever even thought about how fast you read? Because it has never occurred to me to be something that to care about until people continually comment about it on my videos. So I thought this was fun. I'm sure we learned something, and I appreciate you hanging out with me. I'll see you later. Bye.